Maddie, I don't think Judith has the slideshow yet, but if you want to go into the slideshow and just pick up that link and
Oh yeah, I'll get that in the chat.
start farming that out in the chat. Yeah. Yeah, so folks, don't worry about grabbing that link. It'll be in the chat in a second, so don't worry about trying to type that in.
Please don't.
Yeah, that's the shortened one there. So there's. All right, so I'll just get us started slowly here as folks arrive. I think we had 19 registered, so we're pretty close, all things considered. This is going to be Zoom Basics. This is intended to introduce, well, Zoom Basics Plus. This is intended to introduce Zoom to folks. So if you've been using Zoom for a while, you maybe have already participated in this course or watched recordings from it. You're definitely welcome to stick around and learn about that Zoom 101, pick up some things you maybe missed or just get a refresher. But when we included this one for summer learning this year, definitely had in mind people that are maybe new to the district and haven't, we're using other things, Teams and Meet and other tools that are similar to Zoom, but not exactly Zoom, or folks that are maybe new to the profession entirely. So again, if you have some experience with Zoom, I wouldn't be surprised if this is all pretty familiar to you. But that being said, if you want to stick around, we're happy to have you. Also, if you don't, no hard feelings. All right, so I just saw one more arrival there. So I'm just going to go ahead and click forward. We'll do introductions in just a second here as far as, but just know that you're in a Zoom class. We've only got 16 participants. So I think we're going to say that, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll actually just have, folks can speak their questions in those cases. If you do have something that's not really like time sensitive, like doesn't warrant interrupting, just go ahead and use the chat. We do have Judith Bonifaci with us today, and she's going to be handling the chat in the background. So maybe let's do it that way. If you have something where you want to say, hey, can I ask a question about that setting that Pete's doing or this tool that Maddie's showing off, by all means, raise your hand, we'll call on you. You can ask it in real time. But if it's something that's not as like immediate, go ahead and use the chat. I just don't think we have high enough numbers to feel like we're going to get really off track by letting people speak. All right, so as far as introductions are concerned, I'm Pete Connors. I am the Instructional Technology Coordinator for the East Region, which is at this point, just about all the Woodinville schools. And I'm joined today by my esteemed colleague.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maddie Oakley. I am the Instructional Technology Coordinator for the West Region, which is Bothell High School, Canyon Park Middle School, and a lot of elementary schools in Bothell, and our lovely early education center as well. So Pete and I have been teaching courses online on Zoom for a while now, and just know, like Pete mentioned before, that we still have folks who Zoom is not something they're familiar with. So we wanted to make sure that we offered this course to reach that audience.
All right.
We also have Pete mentioned before, we have a special guest, Judith Bonifaci. You can see her profile photo with one of her dogs if you're looking at the participants there, and she'll be monitoring chat if you need her.
Cool. All right. Oh, could have put that up. Sorry about that, folks. I was one click behind.
It's fine.
All right. And do make note, especially if you arrived just as we were starting up here, there is an attendance form. If you registered for this class, awesome. If you haven't, please check out Performance Matters and register for the class. I think you still can, but that'll just make it a little bit easier. If you didn't register and you fill out this form, we'll have to add your name in Performance Matters and then check you off. So you'll save us from having to add you on there. But most importantly, make sure you fill out that Google form. It's just a simple first and last name, and we'll reconcile that against attendance so that you get your clock hours. Okay, here's our agenda. we're going to start off with just a differentiation between the Zoom web portal and the Zoom app. And I'll dive into those. Account and device settings. So two different places where you can adjust settings that impact how your Zoom meetings are run, how to schedule meetings in Zoom. And then we have a list of things that we think are particularly important and warrant some explanation. So polls, breakout rooms, focus mode, and transcriptions, things that can be really useful to someone who's new to Zoom, and something that you probably want to watch a YouTube video or read some documentation about to really use, because some of those are pretty complex, or they're just kind of hard to find. And so Maddie will take you through those 4 there. So first off, let's talk about the Zoom web portal versus the Zoom app. And the first thing is, how do we get to these? So to get to the web side of Zoom, which is where we'll start, we always want to go through Clever. So Clever, if you are new to the district, is reached via my.nsd.org. I'm sure a lot of us have bookmarked that or made it our homepage on our Chrome or our Safari or Firefox, whatever you use. But that is my.nsd.org. If it's your very first time going there, you'll probably have to sign in with your district credentials. But once you do, you should be in a what Clever calls a portal. And you can see the portal is going to have your name in the top right, and then a variety of tiles that that are grouped according to some parameters that we've set up on the back end, and point you towards tools that you have access to via your district account and credentials. The beauty of Clever is that it's a lot of it makes it so that it's single sign-in. So I don't have to click into the Hara and sign in on my own Schoology or Google Drive. Because Clever knows who I am, it's going to tell those other systems who I am. And you can see right here, one of them is going to be Zoom, and it'll say Zoom for staff, which is just going to make sure it signs you in at the right place. It should be in the North Shore Tools section. So that's going to be the first block. And again, if we're brand new to Zoom, it's pretty consistent icons for Zoom. This light blue with a white camera. So yeah, let's all go there first, my.nsd.org, and you're going to click on Zoom.
Pete, just to clarify, do you want everyone to try that right now, or were you just describing?
No, I guess let's not yet. Well, I'll go over the difference with the app login, and then I'll actually go there. So never mind. I think I did suggest that, but let's hang off that for a second.
Okay, cool.
This is what it looks like to go into the app. And the app is, when we say app, I know a lot of us probably are used to the word program, but more and more operating systems even operating systems that aren't on your phones, call them apps. So what I am in right now, and what I assume most of you are in to be a part of this meeting, is the desktop app for Zoom. It's on Mac OS. It's possible that you're looking at it through a web browser or on your phone, but I imagine most of us are on our Macs using the Mac OS desktop app, which is a program on your desktop. It would be down in the dock at the bottom of your screen. And again, it's going to be a light blue background with a white camera in it. You click on it, and if you're not signed into it, it's going to pop up with a screen looking like this. You'll see here that you look at this and think, oh, okay, I should just pop in my district credentials here and hit sign in. But you actually want to use this SSO button. And when you click on that, it's going to ask for your email. You'll put in your email, and the system will realize, oh, that's you're a district employee. It's going to bring you over to our Microsoft logon. So that's when you're opening up the app, you want to use that SSO way of triggering that. Also, if you went into the web version and you clicked on a link, or even just in any of your meetings or anything, if you clicked on a link, the system is going to try to look for that app on your computer and open it for you. So there might be times where you're in the web version, you start a meeting, and then you end up in the in the app, because that's where all the control is happening. So that's different, say, than if you can run them directly in the browser, but you lose a lot of features. So good to have a difference on where you go for those two things. Okay, so here's that bit of like, well, why are there two different places? Why isn't it all just on the website? You know, why would I go from one place to the other? So I tried to make this little table here that says like, what's the advantage of going to or what is the use of each one? And the website is going to be like where your account settings get adjusted. So if you needed to change your display name, change your avatar, make changes like, what's the primary language that your settings are in? What is, you know, the security features that you have every time that you open another meeting? That's where those settings are going to get manipulated. So I try to think of the website of like, if I need to make changes at my account level that impact everything I do in Zoom, those are probably going to be reached through the website, as opposed to the app where, you know, my device settings are, you know, my audio, my video, this background image, like I do that in the app, not on the website. So you also use the website if you want to do some things ahead of time, like building your polls, building out your breakout rooms, and kind of like getting them squared away so when people join a meeting, they just get filed right into it. The website also has really powerful reports and ways for you to dig into, like we could do it with this meeting, we probably will, like we could go back in a report after this meeting and see which accounts connected to this meeting, at what time did they connect, what time did they leave, and therefore did they attend the session, you know, or was it somebody who just dropped in for 5 minutes and left? It's also useful for behavior forensics. You know, we help teachers and principals out with this quite a bit, where, you know, someone comes into the room, they didn't have a requirement to be on a district account, so they were able to come in and Zoom bomb and then leave, and you can see some things in those reports, like IP addresses and, you know, the name at least that they used. So that's also in the website part. You wouldn't see that in the app. And then there's some scheduling things, like it's in the app. Once you sign in, you can just start a meeting, but a lot of the make it recurring and make it a webinar and make it showing up on these particular days, but not these days. That's all going to be in the website, and it's a little bit easier to work in there. As far as the app's concerned, it's a great place to just like I need to just pop open my Zoom room, send out an invitation, you can just do that right in the app, and it's really quick. Also, you can connect the app to your calendar so that you can see upcoming meetings that are in your Outlook and get them to show up on the app. So again, just thinking of them like, you know, two different places that affect things in slightly different ways, but the app is really like where you are when you are in a meeting, and the website is more where you go to change your account level settings. So I think that top two bullets is really the most important one. Account settings happen in the website, device settings and like actual meetings happen in the app. All right. Okay, so I am going to drop out of the slideshow and go over to Clever and sign into Zoom. All right. Okay. So this is when I'm signed into Clever, and you know, it is possible it looks a little bit different for me than it does for you.
You haven't shared your screen yet.
Thank you.
We're still learning the Zoom basics
Yeah.
ourselves.
This is called screen sharing. Okay, here we go. So I went to my.nsd.org. I was recently signed into it, so here, I'll just do it again. But because I was recently signed into it, it's going to bring me right in. If you haven't already, you just sign into it with your district credentials and you'll land on a portal. Like I said earlier, the portal is made up of tiles, and the tiles point to our district web services. And you can see here that for me, I'm seeing two different ones, a Zoom for staff and a Zoom for students, and I want to use the staff one. So I'll give that a click. And I'll be brought to this web page that's showing it's going to land and this is as far as navigation is concerned. There's some buttons across the top that you really don't need to worry too much about. They're all kind of about admin-y type things that happen within the system. There's some quick buttons along the top, like schedule, join, host. Those are all things that if I was just coming in here to just start a meeting, I would probably just do from the app. So I don't often go up to these buttons. Usually when I'm coming into the app, it's because of these things over here. You'll see that there's personal and there's admin. You're seeing admin just because of the privileges of my account. You'll just have personal. And really the difference here is that with admin, you can apply some of the settings that we're going to do individually today in our own accounts to groups of accounts. So it's really the same thing down here, but just on a more of a blanket pattern. And you can see Zoom, I really like the layout in Zoom because it's a lot of the menus are continuous, and these are more like bookmarks than they are individual pages. And I'll show you what I mean when we get into the settings. But you can see that we land in profile. And if I scroll down this, this should all be kind of set up. The personal portion of it should have come in just either from our account or like the department. I think that's maybe coming in from our account management. I think some of that's editable, but you really don't have any need to. You can change your time format, or language if you want. This is an important one down here, this meeting. And so what this is telling you is that every person that has a Zoom account has a personal meeting room. And so you can see mine has an ID number, which is that. And then the link to get there is just our domain / and then the letter J, and then the ID. So some people will use that room, and I think Maddie and I are examples of this. Is like, for the most part, that room is where we do all of our, or the vast majority of our Zooming. Like today, this meeting is unique. It is a Zoom meeting with its own ID because we have some settings that are unique to it. But say earlier when Maddie and I were talking about which sections of this we were going to share with you, we would have just met in her Zoom room or in my Zoom room. If you're meeting with your classes, you can really just use your Zoom meeting room if that's going to be like the most consistent, easy way for you to share that out. You can see that you can, rather than having a Zoom link that is, it is behind the scenes, it is this, like, and this is somewhat, it's going to be numbers based, but you can have a mask on it that makes it your personal link. And if you look at our signatures, like if you emailed me, you would see this link linked from my signature rather than this one, just a little bit cleaner, and maybe something that, like, at the end of a class, if I just pasted this up here on the last slideshow, that would be a little bit easier for folks to remember than just having to type in those numbers there. Maddie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, can I share my screen for a second? Because I have a few more details in my profile that I thought might be good to show while we're up there. Sure. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, so same account, but as you can see, Pete is a minimalist. Okay, so Pete has no profile photo. He doesn't have anything about his department or job title, but those are things that you can adjust as well in your profile. And I have had people in the past ask me, how do I add my pronouns to my screen name as well? And it's actually not my name. There is a pronoun section in Zoom, but you need to go to edit on your profile. And then there's a section for pronouns. So if you haven't filled it in, it just leaves that blank. But if you go to edit, you'll have that option. You'll also have the option to always share it, ask before sharing, or do not share. So that's another option as well with pronouns. And then you save those settings, and it's saved right here. And yeah, that's basically the one thing I really wanted to show. But as you see, I also use that kind of personalized, quick access to my Zoom room. It's a little bit easier than sometimes typing in a set of numbers if someone did need to type instead of copying and pasting. So anyways, that's all I wanted to show, is just that pronoun piece real quick while we were still in that section of the profiles.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Back to you.
I did notice something in your profile settings here that, so if you scroll down, you'll see that you have a licensed account. You should see that you have a licensed account. If you don't, maybe just chat. You could do just a direct message to Maddie here, and it might be something for us to look into. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some people that are logged. We didn't require that you log into this class with a district Zoom account in case we had people that were brand new and maybe are still waiting for their privileges to be enforced, whether that's something coming down the pipe from HR, or just that you're not used to getting in here on your district account. But assuming you are logged in here as your district account, if you don't see licensed, that would be something we want to figure out. I did see, Maddie, you have 500 participants. I only have 300, so good for you. You have your own account number here, which doesn't really relate to anything other than if we need to fix something with Zoom. Your email address listed here. Your linked accounts should say single sign-on, and that's going to be connected down that way. The last thing I want to show you on your profile here is you can connect your calendar. So you can see here, if this isn't already filled out for you, you can add a calendar integration and put in your district credentials. And then you'll actually, and you can see this says read write. That's just meaning that, like, if I make a meeting for Zoom, or sorry, if I have a meeting in my Outlook and I put, like, say in its location, a link to a Zoom room, it's actually going to show up in my app for Zoom, which is pretty nice, because then I just pop the app open and I can look down and I can see, like, okay, not only can I see my non-Zoom meetings in like an agenda, I can see I'll have join buttons for the ones that are actually have Zoom links attached to them. So just makes it really easy to launch. If I had, say I was, if we were teaching remotely and I was a high school teacher and I had 6 different, Zoom meetings throughout the day, I could just go down that agenda and just click join, an hour and a half later, join the next one and work my way down the list. So worthwhile to integrate that there if you think you'd like to have your Zoom, your Outlook and your Zoom talking to each other. That's down there at the bottom. All right, next one here.
Hey, can I interrupt for one more thing?
Yeah.
I did want to mention as well, we do recognize that Zoom in 2022 is more used for things like meeting with parents or counselors or other staff members quickly, having IEP meetings, maybe some special information nights. We're also teaching another course later this week that's Zoom for hybrid events and in-person usage, which is also talking about how you could use Zoom to bring volunteers in the classroom. So we do know that sometimes we'll be talking about Zoom and we'll use examples of like teaching, whereas we know that's not like a preview that like the school district is going to make you teach online next week or anything. I just know sometimes we kind of scare people when we talk that way. So I just wanted to mention that we know the environment is different than it was in the past, but it is still great to know some of these basics moving forward. So that's all.
Great. So now you can see on the left here, I've moved down to meetings, which is the next banner here. And this is a place where exactly as it says, where you can schedule and manipulate your meetings. Right across the top, it's showing you any upcoming ones. So if you've got them scheduled or someone has invited you or added you as a co-host or something like that, that's going to be here. We'll go through meeting scheduling once we go over the settings. So I'm not going to click on this button, even though I realize this is probably one that stands out to us. I don't have any previous ones, that are scheduled there. So that's why that's blank. I do come in here, at least when I'm when I was new to Zoom, I spent a decent amount of time in this personal room to edit what's going on here. And so again, this is like if you have settings that you want applied to your personal room, you can do that here. So you can see like right now, mine has a waiting room. And the thing that I'm going to use my personal meeting room for, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a lot of us, probably this maybe is how we are using Zoom, is if someone is going to like book an appointment with me, say for parent-teacher conferences, or obviously I use it for meeting with teachers. If they book a meeting with me and then, you know, they arrive a few minutes early, like they can just land in a waiting room here. So that's why I'm going to have that turned on. And then I do want, you know, for the most part, at least for my job, almost everyone I'm going to meet with is a district employee and will have district credentials. If I know I'm meeting with a vendor or something like that, they'll often be the ones setting up our meeting. So I like to have this on. I think that's an important security thing, is to make sure that the person you're meeting with has district credentials. So you can just see those as far as what by default happens with regard to people's video. And then I have a particular option here, which is mute participants upon entry. I just find mostly when I'm teaching classes, I'd rather people turn their audio on or unmute themselves rather than have them come in and still be on the phone or something like that. But to edit those, you can see there's an edit button. And I can change those things. So if I didn't want a waiting room, or if I did, I hit edit and then check or uncheck that. Requiring the authentication is on. By default, I do have the participant and the host video on. If I was a classroom teacher, I'd maybe consider turning the participant one down to off if you're having students opt in to show their video, or if, like, say you're meeting with parents and you want them to, you know, not necessarily connect and still have the sandwich in their mouth or something, you could have that down to off so that they aren't like auto turned on. Down here, mute participants upon entry. It's one that I use, obviously don't have to. Automatically record meetings. That was one that we maybe use more in remote teaching, but I tend to just toggle it on and off as needed, since, you know, it's not like everything that I meet, every one-on-one that I have with teachers. You know, I don't need it to go up into the cloud and fill up our cloud when it's just, you know, helping somebody fix up their grade book or something like that. And then alternative hosts, I would leave that one blank. If you always were like team meeting with people, you could put your teammates in there. So maybe some TOSAs would use this, or possibly you would maybe use that if it was, you know, there's a co-teacher that you want to have. If they start the meeting, even though you created it in your personal room, you could have them there. But mostly it looks like this is going to be related to adding and editing polls. So I guess useful. And then finally, you do have meeting templates here. If you schedule a meeting, so this Schoology 101 is one that I made, I could use it as a template. And then what they mean there for as far as templates is the duration of it and all the settings related to it. So if you had a meeting that you wanted to be a departure from your standard settings, I don't really come across situations where I need that. I could see, as far as a classroom teacher, if you had, you wanted to make a parent-teacher conference template, it could be pretty useful there, because so you make the meeting first, and we'll talk about scheduling once we go through settings. And then you go back and you say, yeah, we'll make this one a template now, and I want to use it going forward. And why I use parent-teacher conferences as an example, but you could say the same thing with IEP meetings, is, you know, maybe that's the type where you don't need to require the people to have a district account, because you know you're meeting with people that are outside of the district. And you might adjust some of those settings. Like, I definitely want a waiting room when I don't have the account enforcement, because that's like my airlock to protect me from someone who joins the meeting intending to Zoom bomb me. Is if I see a weird username, well, I'm probably not going to let that person in. Whereas if they're a district account, I know that they're at least going to be having a recognizable name there. All right, so that is meetings. Webinars, we don't really use those at this point, so not necessarily one that we need to drop into. Contacts should be pulling from or connected to your Outlook. So not really anything to edit there. I'm going to hop down to settings to just take you through the bevy of settings that you're going to see here. So earlier I mentioned that I like Zoom's settings because, or it's the settings that it makes available to us because it has this kind of endless scroll with bookmarks. And you're going to notice that as we go down this list. I'm going to highlight some ones that I think are worth your consideration as to whether or not you turn them on. And as we go down this list, like, so here, it's going to start us off on security. I think over the years, especially since the pandemic, Zoom has realized that security is a big concern for people. So this one didn't used to be even broken out into its own thing, and now it is. And I think that's reflective of those, I think, schedules of what they originally had at the top. But you'll see that as we go down, notice these bookmarks are going to float with me. And when I get to schedule meeting, it's just going to jump right down to that next one. So this one powerful thing I would recommend taking note of here is if you hold down Command and hit F, the letter F, you'll bring up your Finder. And so if I knew, okay, I'm coming in here and I want to find out where's my co-host settings. If I just do Command F and then work my way through that, I'm going to find everything that has anything to do with co-host. And because it's on this endless scroll, that makes it possible. I don't have to be like, oh, it's in meeting advanced, so click on that, and then you're in the sub page, and then you can find it. So using that Finder to find this stuff, I think, is really useful. So let's get into it then. If we're in here in security, you can, right off the bat here, I want to just mention waiting rooms. There are options to customize your waiting room. You might find that when you meet with us, we have like a logo that's, maybe the tech logo, or you could have your school's logo, and you're in the waiting room of Mr. Connors, and I'll be with you in a minute. That's all happening right here. So that's in this customize area, and you can see right now, mine is just, it looks like just set to the default, but I could have a logo and a description, or apparently you can even have a video play now. I think that was a pretty recent addition. But you can drop in an image here and a description to let people know that they are in the right place. Otherwise, it'll just display, and you can see in the default screen, the topic of the meeting, which by default will be the name of the meeting. So that might work, but if you're doing parent-teacher conferences, if you do this logo and a description, upload a logo, whether you have a class logo or a school logo, you could put that in, and then the description here, Mr. Connors parent-teacher conferences, can be displaying right for you, and just kind of reassures people that they're in the right spot. We've also in the past used that waiting room customization to put things like, please be sure to adjust your name so that it's recognizable. And, if that means that, so because sometimes people sign in and they just have a super generic name, or they have the jokey name from the social hour that they did with their friends that, or the night before, gives people a chance to clean that stuff up and make them recognizable before you let them out of the waiting room and into the meeting with you. You can see here in this edit options, this gives you some control over your waiting room. So who should go into it? This is kind of a nice nuance here where you could say, if they're not logged in, put them into the waiting room. And that maybe gives you a chance to then have a look and say, oh, okay, well, that person's name is, is recognizable. So I think that's maybe the person I'm waiting for, but otherwise they could just come right in. So that's in those options. And then as you scroll down this more, you have other settings related to your passcodes. I would mostly leave these as the default. These are going to be ones that are pushed from the admin side. So the security things, I would say, yes, you want passcodes. Yes, you want to be, and remember, again, this is like This is pushing out to all of your meetings. So like this one here, only authenticating meeting participants and attendees can join meetings and webinars. That's like, people are required to have a district account to join your meeting unless you turn that off. Definitely leave it on. And then if you're going to be meeting with someone who doesn't have district credentials, you can turn it off for that meeting. And I think that's always going to be the safer way to go. All right. Only authenticating on that one's. So yeah, again, these are all going to be pushed from the district admin side. I really wouldn't worry about tweaking too many of those security ones. As far as scheduling a meeting, remember when we looked at earlier about your personal room and whether you want these host videos and participant videos to be on or off by default? This is where you can make that change for ones that aren't in your personal room. So your personal room gets its own set of settings, and then these settings are saying, for all the other ones I make, what should we do by default? And again, when you schedule them, you can change it. So this is saying, like, if you schedule a meeting, when the meeting starts, is your video on, or the host on, actually, because you can schedule meetings for other people. And then also, when you start the meeting, do participants start with their video on? And that could be something that, depending on what you do. Again, I generally think let people turn those on, but again, it really depends on like how you're meeting and with whom you're meeting. Audio type, I would leave it as telephone and computer. I don't think you'll have many people call into your meetings, but the option is there. You'll see there are some things here that are locked by the admin, so allowing participants to join before the host. That's one of the perks of having a waiting room, is if, or they'll just end up in a space where it says the host hasn't not yet started the meeting. So just let them be in that kind of like waiting area until you're there to start it. If there's ever any real need to have that turned on, and that's part of our own like security considerations is why that is turned off. We don't use host keys, so you can see that one is locked. These are turned on, your personal meeting ID, so that you have your own, and then the watermark, something you can do for your own classes, but I would recommend just leaving that off. You don't really need to have this watermarked. Seems like something more that like a business would do. Mute all participants when they join a meeting. That's one I generally have turned on, and I would recommend you do the same, especially if you're meeting with students. Cool. Yeah, so then upcoming meeting reminder, meeting templates. We can leave those as they are. And then you're down to in meeting basic. Maddie, it looks like your audio is, oh no, never mind. It looks like it was starting to come through.
Do you think I was going to say something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No.
Like your profile lit up for a second there, but.
Oh, no.
Okay, cool. All right. In your meeting basic, there are some things here that I think are useful to consider for your classes. So meeting chats, do you want people to be able to pull those? You might consider just having that be the host and co-host. It might be something that you would like for parent conferences. Maybe that's going to be someone or only users in your account, but like do students need to be able to pull the chat, a save of it? Maybe, maybe not. This one right here, I would definitely, encourage you to consider. I leave it on. I think it's useful for people to be able to direct message each other. Especially I want them to be able to direct message me. I know when I'm teaching classes, I sometimes get messages from people that are, it's just like a one-on-one question or, but between students, maybe you don't need that on. So might be something to consider turning off if you're using this with groups of students. If you're doing it for parent-teacher conferences, it's probably never really going to come up. The sound, the chime when they join, I think it's useful to have on, but up to you on that one. Sending files, it doesn't usually get abused, but it could be. I think, a lot of these things, it comes up where it's useful to remind students that you can, because you're logged in as your own account, everything you do is attached to you and traceable to you. So if hopefully folks don't use that for in bad ways, but you could turn it off here and then turn it on, just send things out in other ways via Schoology or Bara, and that's never a bad idea. Sometimes we find that people aren't able to make co-hosts. So like in this meeting, Maddie, Judith, and I are all, I think either Maddie or I is the host, and then the other two are co-hosts. If you ever find that you can't make someone a co-host, it could be because that setting is turned off. There's also sometimes these like superpowers in Zoom, like being able to serve out polls. If you find that you can't do it, it's probably because it's turned off in these settings. I think we've globally turned them on for everybody, but if you find that you're missing a feature, you might just look in your settings and find out, oh, whoops, it's off. This one is a preference here, always show meeting control toolbar. I always like it to be floating, but if you're on a small screen, it might take up some room. You might consider turning that off. Same thing with the Zoom windows during a screen share. We teach a lot of things with like how-tos with people, and it's useful for them to see the Zoom windows when we're trying to show them where there's a particular setting, but you might find that those kind of just get in the way. So it might be something to consider turning off. When you screen share, you have got a set of things, of options here. I would definitely highlight this one for you, the who can share. And this is something that you can adjust in the meeting. If you're in the meeting and you go to the security tab, you can say like, okay, participants can share or they can't. But this is just saying when you start the meeting, should that toggle be on host only or everyone? I think it's best to say only the host can share until they give that on a case-by-case basis. But that's totally up to you as far as like how you're using this. But if you make that all participants, then just know that folks, someone can interrupt your share with their own share. So something to keep an eye out for. Yeah, these ones are disabling it. I don't see a reason to do that. Like here, annotation, that's one that Maddie's going to talk about in just a little bit here. I would make, you just want to make sure you have it turned on because it's, it's very useful. Same with whiteboard. Remote control, not something you're going to really use. So could even have that one turned off. I've never turned on the slide control one because I always just present from Google Slides, but if you're someone who likes PowerPoint Keynote, you've got those available to you. Meeting reactions, those are something you could turn on and off depending on how it's getting used, but not necessarily. It's just a way for folks to, there you go, for folks to reply with icons. I think it's useful, but if you find that people overuse it, it might be something you turn off. I think if we were teaching in Zoom, might be something you'd consider turning off, but I just don't think you'll come across it too much when you're working mostly like for say parent-teacher conferences or class visits or something like that. Joining different meetings simultaneously on desktop. This was one that we were kind of surprised to come across, but it's not. It wasn't on by default. There hopefully aren't too many situations where you need to be in two Zooms at the same time, but certainly when we were teaching remotely, there were. So just keep it in. If you can't, if it kicks you out of one, one thing I would say is you can't host two meetings at the same time, but you can host one and join another. Again, hopefully it's not something you have to do. I hope you're not stuck in two trainings at the same time or trying to host something, but sometimes it happens where you're the host of something and you need to be there just to, have it open and you're on a panel or something and you also need to be in something else. So having that checked will allow you to do that. I'm going to skip down just a bit here, allowing participants to rename themselves. I would leave that off, especially when you're meeting with students. Their account is going to pull their name, allowing them to rename themselves. Maybe often could not be in our best interest, but that's where that button is if you want to. Allowing hosts or co-hosts to remain participants in the waiting room. So that can be a useful one if you think you're going to need to clean things up a little bit, but I think, again, if you're using district accounts, they're going to pull the district username, or the district name that we have on file. So not a big deal there. Another one to make sure you have turned on is breakout rooms, because we're going to be talking about those in a bit. I would definitely encourage you to use them. And you'll see some check boxes here, allowing hosts to assign participants and allowing hosts to broadcast messages to participants. Again, those are things that Maddie's going to show you that you can change on the fly, but this is just by default. So, it doesn't overly matter. It's not going to keep you from being able to use that in a particular class. You'll just have to remember to check that box once you've started it. Yeah, otherwise down as you go down, there's things for captions and for transcripts. I do think being able to save the captions is a good one to have turned on. I believe it is on by default. I would just just leave it that way. You'll see virtual backgrounds are here. Do you want to allow people to use them? That was something that students could be disruptive by having virtual backgrounds. If you might sample it and see, but if it's not, that's the button there, and whether they can use them or not is based on that check. But it was something that we found that started well and maybe just started getting misused. Same with video filters and avatars. And again, you can change it when you schedule a meeting, but just by default, it's here. Focus mode is one that Maddie's going to talk about. I would definitely have that one turned on. It's really nice for making, keeping a spotlight on someone, so to speak. And then, yeah, some of these ones down here are just get like really, really advanced. One I would encourage you to have turned off is this join from a browser. I think sometimes with parents, it kind of makes things confusing, because if you're not signed into your Zoom meeting, you can click that, then not end up in the app, and then not have all your features. And it's better just to leave it off, and then that'll make the person have to sign in to whatever their app or their desktop program. So I would encourage leaving those off. Live streaming, you don't have to worry about. That's all done through communications. Yeah, incoming video feature. I haven't come across that one before. And then there's just, yeah, some email notifications here. And some of these, I would again leave them as the default. I don't really get too many emails from Zoom, so even though I have these ones turned on, but that's some really advanced scheduling things that you don't really have to worry about. And same things down here in the bottom and the other, not really a spot that you have to worry too much about. Cool. All right, I will drop out of that. Maddie, anything to add on settings?
I'll share my screen here.
Yeah.
Actually, can you share your screen back on settings for a second, and then I'll share my screen. I have a fun little fun break thing too in a second. So
cool.
everybody look forward to that. Okay, can you scroll up to the top? Just see if I'm wrong or not. Okay, so one thing I want folks to keep in mind, especially if you are new to Zoom and you're in the settings here, as you can see, there are about 500 settings options. There's a lot of things you can do in Zoom in settings, and we are literally just in the meeting settings. Across the top, there's settings for recordings, audio conferencing, all of these things. You don't need to use most of them, but they are there. So I know sometimes people see settings and they think, oh, I need to look at every single one and make sure I'm doing it properly. Because you have a district managed account, as long as you're assigned into your district account and using it, all of the super important settings that you must have one way or another, we have toggled for you. And otherwise things are just options. So I just wanted to point that out, that yes, there are a lot of settings. You don't need to look at every single one with a fine tooth comb. Good. Okay. All right. You can go ahead and stop sharing P, and I'll share my screen. Okay. I hope that all of you have already seen the Zoom clip that I'm about to share here. This is my favorite thing that has happened. Okay, for context, just recall that, during 2020 and, part of 2021, court cases were happening on Zoom instead of in courtrooms.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take a
We're
look.
trying to, can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It
in the-
is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
So anyways, that's one of my favorite Zoom things that has ever happened. So just had to share that really quickly. At this point, I think people are doing less things with filters, so it's not so much of an issue, but it is nice to know some quick ways that you can adjust your settings in Zoom if you need to, if you accidentally have something up. So we're going to now talk about some of the in-meeting settings, like while you're in the middle of the meeting that you might want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and share that from the slideshow because it's a little bit trickier to actually show them while I'm actually Zooming. So we've got some more screenshots than live views. Okay. All right, so the first thing we'll talk about is screen sharing. So when you are the host of a meeting, or sometimes you'll have the option during a meeting that you're a member of as well, you have the option to share your screen. I'm trying to figure out my controls real quick for video. It's fine. Pete, will you just make sure to tell me if anyone needs something? Because I can't pull up, I can't see the participants video. So feel free to interrupt me if needed, okay? Yes.
If anyone did catch that, there is you could hold your hand up in Zoom or
I
do a
can't
thumbs
see
up.
anyone's videos, so I can't see the reactions or anything. That's why I can see your little hand up now on the participants list. But anyways.
Yeah, and you can trigger those by actually raising your hand or doing the thumbs up. So it's fun.
I think my issue too is that here we go. I wasn't showing my video panel. Now I am. Phew, I found the setting in the meeting while hosting. Okay. All right. So while you're in a meeting, there is a green button at the bottom that says share screen. You'll click on that share screen icon and then select the screen you want to share. You'll have a lot of options in here. You might have desktop 1, desktop 2, sometimes desktop 3. Desktop 2 and 3 show up if you have another monitor or maybe another display set up, like you're in your classroom and you're connected to your presentation system. That kind of, if you don't have mirror displays on, that will treat your display in your classroom like a monitor, like another monitor. So they will give you that option as well. You also have the choice to choose just specific programs. So if you have many programs open or many tabs open, you might say, I want to share only this Google Chrome window that I have open, keeping in mind that if you, while you're sharing your screen, decide that you want to show a different Google Chrome window, you won't be able to if you've only picked one instead of picking showing everything. So if you choose desktop, that will show everything on your desktop. So right now, if I could switch to showing something different, I'm showing just my blank desktop, I'm showing my slide deck, I could pull something over to that desktop and it will show it. So choosing desktop, that first option, means you'll show everything that you can see on your computer, the participants can see as well. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is if you are working on a new computer where you haven't used Zoom since using the new computer, if you click share screen, the first time you might have some X's on this menu. That's because in your system preferences, you need to go in and allow Zoom to share your screen. So that's one thing to keep in mind. You should get a little window that pops up and says you need to open system preferences and allow Zoom to share. It will require you, if you're in the middle of a meeting, to end the meeting and like reopen Zoom. So just something to keep in mind. And the next thing we'll talk about is annotations. So once you're sharing your screen, you can also annotate over the screen you're sharing. You'll click on the annotate button at the bottom. And when you do that, you can choose to draw, stamp, spotlight, or do different things on the screen. Like right now, I'm going to draw on my screen and it shows up for you to see. I also have the clear button that shows up. So I can clear all the drawings. And I'm going to look at my security right now. And I have allowed you guys to annotate on shared content for participants. So you should also have at the bottom of your bar an annotate button. You can go ahead and click annotate and see those different options of text, draw, stamp. And if you want to, for just a minute, you can experiment with annotating on my screen so you can see what it looks like for other people to see. It does normally work that you'll have like a different color than other participants, which is kind of cool. So if I choose text, I can write my name. You can write your name on the screen. Pete, do you want to write your name on the screen? Show everyone how it works. Make sure it's functioning. Do you have annotate?
No.
It's not showing up. Go ahead, Mary. Is it not showing up for you either?
Correct. It is not showing up. I've got participants, chat, share screen, record, live transcript, reactions, and apps.
Interesting. Yeah, I have on mine. It says allow participants to, and it says annotate on shared content. So apparently I didn't, something's working with it. Go ahead, Pete.
Oh, I got it. Okay. So folks, so that's down on the menu bar where like Maddie's annotate controls are. But if you look up at the top, you get a green rectangle that says you are viewing Maddie Oakley's screen. And then there's view options. Do we have I have an annotate in there. Yeah, it looks like other people do too. Okay, cool.
It's like
Yeah, so view options, annotate, and then you'll get your own controls.
There we go. Now I'll show you guys really quickly too. As you can imagine, with parent-teacher conferences, this is probably not an issue. With students, this might be an issue. So I also have down, you can see down here, security. If I click on this security shield while I'm hosting, I can uncheck allowing you to annotate content. And that should make it that people can't annotate anymore. And it does seem like it's stopped. If I check it again, it allows you to. And then I also have the option in annotation where I can clear all of my drawings. Like I just cleared, the only thing that disappeared was Maddie. I can clear my viewers' drawings, or I can clear all drawings. So that's something that we can do. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off annotation now, and I'm going to clear all drawings. And we'll move along with that. You will see this does get used quite often in IEP meetings. So if you are participating in an IEP meeting, this is how you sign IEPs now. If it's on Zoom, is the case manager will share their screen. Everyone will click on the green rectangle near the person sharing the screen and choose the drawing tool, sign their name, and then they take a screenshot of that. At least that's been my experience in some IEP meetings that I've participated in. So it's pretty cool that tool is available and makes attending those meetings more accessible for lots of families. So that's annotate. Let's go ahead to the next screen. I think I was just showing, I'm going to go back again. At first I was showing that annotate button, but this is another view on those other icons I was talking about, that you have the option to write text, draw, choose a stamp, spotlight things. There's an eraser, so you can erase things you annotate. You can change colors, etc. And then this clear button is an important one to know where that is. You can also save the annotations on the screen with this icon here. Also in screen sharing options, you have the option to share a whiteboard, and this is a blank screen that you can write over like a whiteboard. I'm going to go ahead and right now I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share a whiteboard so you can see what that looks like. So right now there's this whiteboard that I can draw on or write on because I'm the only one that's allowing annotation right now. So I can write anything I would like to write, or I can draw something. I can draw a squiggle. I can change it and put in a box. I can do a stamp. I can choose whatever stamp I like out of the few that are available. I can spotlight things for people to see. I can put an arrow in. Actually, this is the arrow function is something that as an instructional technology coordinator, Pete and I use quite often, where someone's sharing their screen with us and we're wanting to show them where something is on their screen that they need to pay attention to while we're trying to fix a problem. So we'll go to annotate, arrow, and point and say, oh, look, this is the setting that you need to change is right here. And it's a really cool feature to be able to do that. All right, so I'm going to clear those and I'm going to stop sharing the whiteboard. That's the whiteboard feature. I'll go back to sharing my screen regularly. Okay. So what that looks like. Polls. Another thing about polls is in the past, in order to do polls, you had to set up some of the questions before the meeting even started. You now have the options during a meeting to create those questions and send out those questions to participants. So when you're hosting a meeting, this is what it will look like. And this poll icon is what you'll use to start a poll. And if you already have questions there, they will come up and you can either click launch poll or edit the questions from there. Then once you've launched the poll while it's running, you can see how long you've been running the poll. You can see real-time results as people post answers. And then you can also end the poll. And once you close it, you'll see the final results and you can click share results button for everyone to be able to see them. You can also relaunch the poll if you'd like to. Am I sharing the wrong screen, Pete? Yep. Okay, great. You didn't interrupt me to tell me. Okay, there we go. Pete got distracted. I'll blame him. Okay, desktop 2 is what I want to share. Did I do that before too, or just right now?
Just the one.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go back and show this again then, because I wasn't showing you guys. I was showing the wrong screen. That's what happens when you have 2 monitors. Sometimes you might choose the wrong one to share. That's what I did. All right. So I was talking about polls and where that option is when you're hosting. It's next to share screen. And this is the part where after you click polls, it will come up with any questions that you've already created for polling. And you can choose to edit from there and you'll get another pop-up that lets you write new questions. You can choose to launch. After you launch it, you'll see how long you've launched the poll, how people have voted in the poll currently, and then you can end the poll. And then you'll be able to see the final results and share them if you'd like. So I'm going to create a poll right now. And I'm going to do one question for you guys. Bear with me. So I'm in real time creating this poll and I'm saving it. And now I'm ready to launch it. Okay, so get ready. Poll's coming at you. Here it is. All right, so I'm going to end the poll because everyone has answered. And now I'm going to share the results. So now you can see most people said their summer was great, but we had a few that said wonderful, amazing, and so-so. So I hope whoever said so-so that it improves in these last few days for you. Okay, let's see. I'm going to stop sharing again and just make sure I'm sharing the correct screen. All right, and view my panel. Great. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is breakout rooms. And to use breakout rooms, you click on the breakout rooms tab on the meeting toolbar on the bottom. And the breakout rooms option, just another thing to know too, if you're ever in a meeting and hosting a meeting and you're not seeing the same like controls that you're used to, sometimes it might be because, like myself right now, you're sharing your screen and those options kind of change where they are. So one thing to know is that on the right side of the bar, many times you'll get this option that says more ... And that's where a lot of those things will go to hide. Unfortunately, they'll be in a long list of options instead of a quick little icon. But for instance, right now, while I'm hosting this meeting and sharing my screen, I don't see the breakout room option. So in order to find it, I'm clicking more, and then I see breakout rooms over towards the top of my screen. So when I click breakout rooms, I'm going to get a window that opens up like this. You're going to select the number of breakout rooms that you want, and you can let Zoom assign automatically where people go. You can assign manually, or you can let participants choose their breakout room. Those are all options. And then you would click create. After you click create, you'll see breakout rooms, and you can rename the rooms if you like. And when you're ready, you click open all rooms. So once you click create, it doesn't just put everyone in breakout rooms right away. It does that automatically assign, and then you're still able to kind of move people around if you need to before you open those rooms. And if you click the options tab, which is in the bottom left here of that window, you'll also have some options like allowing people to choose their room, allowing them to return to the main session, moving people into breakout rooms, putting how long the breakout room should be open, having a countdown for when the breakout rooms are going to close. Pretty straightforward, but helpful things to know. You can also pre-assign breakout rooms in scheduled meetings. I'm going to show that live right now. Let's see. Ooh, Andy, I see you said that's new. That's cool. Do you want to unmute and tell us what you're noticing specifically that's exciting for you?
Yeah, just back when we were doing so much more remote teaching in American Sign Language, they've got to work with each other so much. So breakout rooms were wonderful for that. But to have when the countdown shows, and to have there were 3 features there. Now I completely went blank.
I'll go back.
To have that little settings bar at the bottom, we haven't had that before. So all of that is new for us.
Cool. Awesome.
Everything there is new, unless you went the long way yourself to do it, is what I'm trying to say. And that's all in one spot. Yeah.
And having it like in meeting that you can do some of those settings as well is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show live really quickly in settings where the settings are for the pre-assigned breakout rooms. So if I've got an upcoming meeting and I know who's going to be in it, let's see here. Edit. Show. I have this option here when I have a meeting that's created, or I'm creating a meeting, where I can do breakout room pre-assign. And what I can do is create a CSV. There's a template that you download. So you could do this, for instance, if you knew already like the emails of the parents that were going to be at a meeting that you were having. You could create this CSV file with what room folks were going to be in and the email address that they were using to join the Zoom meeting. So you could have things set ahead of time as to what meeting or what breakout room they would go into. I know that I worked with some first grade teachers during remote learning who they did all of their they started their morning together, the entire first grade, and then they would go into their classes in breakout rooms. And so they would pre-assign using student email addresses to just have it set every day of this is where kids are going to go for their pre-assigned breakout room. So that's an option as well. That's definitely getting into the nitty-gritty, but sometimes it can be helpful based on your needs. Is it something that I do all the time every day? Absolutely not, but it is something that you have the ability to do. Okay. Go ahead, Mary.
I noticed a slide back where it said you can remove a student from a breakout room, but the exchange. Can you explain a little more on the exchange? Does that mean you can trade, like, say, Freddie Frog for the Fern? You know, like switch kids around?
I believe that's the case.
Yes.
Andy, is that what your experience is?
Yeah, if you click on, let's say Shirley, oh, Shirley should not be with Haley. So I'm going to click on exchange, and then I can find anybody on my list from room 1 to 5 that I want to switch them for. Because maybe, you know, Shirley is a special case and she can't be exchanged with somebody specific, with anybody. So you want to be very diligent on who you put them with. It's actually really helpful when you have students that don't participate a lot or have specific needs, or you have too many leaders in a group.
Right. So no, I've had to, in the past, I move them to it was more like shuffling cards. So the idea of just a straight out swap exchange would be a lot easier.
In
So
that
that's cool.
case, in that case, sorry to monopolize real quick. In that case, I just would have clicked recreate and I just would have had a full deck exchange. Now all the rooms are different, or maybe even I make the groups bigger by collapsing one of the rooms. And so now the rooms are all bigger by 1 people, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's lots of options. It's good, but it's good to know kind of where all these are and how it works. Thanks,
Mhm.
guys.
Thanks.
I appreciate it too, because you guys, you know, have done even more of the in the field, how it's working, how these tools and options are working for you. So I really do appreciate you sharing your experiences. Thank you. Okay. You can also, we talked about the CSV file, but if you click the create rooms button while you're within Zoom, you'll get these options to pre-create those breakout rooms. And in here, because students should be using, or staff members should be using their NSD accounts, you can start typing participants' names or email addresses, and it should auto-populate those names as well. So you can go through creating it this way instead of doing the CSV file as well. Okay. I also wanted to show the option of focus mode. This is one that shows up when you're hosting in the more section over on the right. And if you click on more and then click start focus mode, what happens is it makes just the hosts and co-hosts videos visible. So if I do it right now, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen just to make it really clear too. Okay, so I'm going to enable focus mode. Start focus mode, and it gives me a little warning too. It says start focus mode. Participants will only be able to see the host's video and shared content and videos of spotlighted participants. I'll say yes, I'll say start. So let's see. Participant, it says now participants can only see hosts and spotlighted users. So Andy, can you unmute and tell me whose video you can see?
Currently right now, I just see Maddie, but everybody else is just first and last name.
Mhm.
And if they had a profile picture that went away. Now I can see Pete, but is that because I'm in gallery view? Well, no, speaker view doesn't change. I can still see everybody who's on the screen.
Yeah, it should be that you could see Pete because he is a host. So if he's a co-host. So if he wasn't a co-host, you wouldn't be able to see him, his video. Does that make sense?
Correct.
And then Jack Oakley, can you see Andy's video?
No, he also is a black screen with his first and last name showing.
Yeah, and as the host, I can see Andy's video. And Pete can probably see Andy's video. And I saw Mary show her video for a second, but the participants aren't seeing that. So as a host, I can see that, but it's maybe less distracting for the participants who might be your students. So that's one option there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off focus mode. So if you do want your camera off and you don't want people to see you, feel free to turn that off if you were playing around with that. So yeah, and Beth said great to reduce anxiety. So I'm going to stop the focus mode. So focus mode is ending. And if you have started your video, other people can see it. I did also see though another option, which is let's see. So now we've got that focus mode turned off, so you can see profile images instead of just the black screen. But there's also an option in security where and I'll show this one right here. So if we're in security settings, let's say I don't want people's videos to go off, or I quickly see that I have people who've joined my meeting and someone has a profile image that is kind of not appropriate. Not so sure about it. I don't know if I want people seeing that profile image. You can see I also have this option of hide profile pictures. So if I click that, everyone goes to just their name instead of a profile photo if they have their video off. So that's a nice feature as well to be able to do that quickly. The security settings tab was, I think, introduced 2021, I believe. It was not available right away when we downloaded Zoom. Go ahead, Jack. You gotta unmute.
We can't see a screen. If you're trying to share a screen, we can't see it.
Oh, I'm not sharing it right now.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you though. Okay, I will share it again. Okay. All right, so on the security screen, let me show my video panel. There we go. All right, so on the security settings here, sorry, this hide profile pictures is what turns off everyone's profile pictures if I want that turned off. And this security button, which is down here at the bottom when you're the host, that was a big update, I believe in 2021, maybe late 2020. Before that, some of the settings, some of these really quick things that you want people to be able to do or not do, it took going into the Zoom web profile and change the settings in there, or diving into more settings in order to adjust it. So one thing to keep in mind, especially if you are ever hosting students or like a larger group where you're not sure maybe how things are going to go, keep in mind where the security tab is. It's the third one from the bottom. You've got mute, stop video, and then security. And when you click on security, you'll be able to disable people from renaming themselves if they're renaming something, doing something inappropriate, or keep them from being able to unmute themselves if someone keeps unmuting and you hear like the yelling going on in the background. So this is just nice to be able to have those really quick options while you're hosting a meeting. You can also lock a meeting. If you have everyone in a meeting that you know is supposed to be there, you can lock it. So that way you won't have any other people like surprise joining a meeting. Keep in mind though, that sometimes people do get bumped off of a meeting due to connections and then bumped back, and then they need to join back on. So if you lock meeting, it can, I believe it keeps them from rejoining. Pete, do you know if that's true?
Yeah, that is true.
That is true. Okay, great. All right. Next, talking about transcriptions, the live transcription setting. This is a built-in AI-powered transcription utility, and it's in the bottom of the toolbar along the bottom of your meeting, and you can enable it. It then also gives participants the choice to turn on or off the viewing of those transcriptions, which is a nice accessibility feature. So we have that on right now. And if you wanted to turn on being able to see those subtitles, you could. You also have the option of seeing a transcript pop up where it's just got the text running on the side in a pop-up window, like the chat pops up in a pop-up window. It also, when you're recording, it saves those transcriptions as well, so it can be seen during the recording. And the upper portions of that screen, when you click the transcriptions part, they relate to leveraging like an extra person to do transcribing for you. So maybe you have, for some reason, you want someone definitely getting your words perfectly right and you want to transcribe. I've never actually used this feature. I've used that live transcription instead because it works pretty well. But the bottom option here is how you would enable live transcription. Currently, it's only available in English, but if you do need support with getting subtitles in another language, we do have tools for that, and just reach out to myself, Pete, or your area's instructional technology coordinator, and we can help you with some of the tools that can help with that. Let's see, also the teacher toolbox has an entire page for Zoom resources. You can also reach out to your school's STS, or like I said, your instructional technology coordinator. And then I had two things while we were in the meeting that I remembered that I was like, oh, I want to share those like quick tips at the end. One that Pete already said was that when you're in Zoom settings and you're looking for something you need to adjust on the web, using Command F is your friend. That allows you to find something to search for it, because there's so many settings that Command F will get you where you need to go a little bit faster sometimes. And the other thing I wanted to show is while you're in a meeting, whether as a participant or as a host, I believe it's for participants as well. In the top right corner, there should be a little green shield. And if you click on it, it gives you meeting information. It lets you know the meeting ID number, who the host is. There's also an easy way for you to copy a link and share it with people. So I just like to share this because this is how I typically, when I need to do a Zoom meeting quickly and share it with someone, I'll go to the Zoom app, click start new meeting, click on the green shield, click copy link for that meeting, and then share that with someone. I'm not having to go to some place where I've saved the link or I have to get the meeting ID. I can just go there and copy it really quickly. So that's just one of my quick tips for if you're ever having to start a Zoom meeting with someone and you want to find that to share. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and Pete, you go ahead and share what you'd like.
So the last thing I wanted to share, because we are getting just to the end there, is just the actual like console where you schedule a meeting. So if I would just share my screen here.
Go for it.
Cool. So here you go. If you go into Zoom, and I will also show you, yeah, kind of the same. Like if you can do this out of the app, and I can show you that once I share these settings, but the largest number of settings are going to be available in the web console. So I recommend going to the website, and then up here in the top, there's schedule. And you'll see it looks a lot like when I showed you the personal meeting room settings, but this is where you would actually, if you had a reoccurring meeting, or, you know, say you wanted to make like drop-in office hours or something like that, you could set this up via the scheduler. And it should be, you know, pretty similar to what you'd expect from like a calendar tool, but you give it a name, you give it a date and time, a duration. It can be recurring, and you see they have, you know, just like any calendar system is going to have options for daily, weekly. You can have these no fixed times. We use these have used these a certain amount in the past where it's just like, you want to have a standing room for a particular topic. You could just do this no fixed time, and it's kind of just like an always opened kind of thing, where you might tell your class like, hey, I have office hours from here to here. But then you just have this room that if they head to it and say you say office hours start at 4 and they're in there at 3:45, like they'll just be in the waiting room because you haven't started it. But it can be kind of a standing place that you have scheduled all along. It doesn't have to have a fixed amount of time associated with it. But if you did have like blocks for parent-teacher conferences, you could schedule them here. Occurrences across the side there, which templates need to be used. And you can see as you get down the list, you see a lot of those choices that we talked about that I mentioned where you could, hey, this one is enforced on, but you can toggle it off. Yeah, Maddie.
Oh, I just wanted to say that the no fixed time recurring meeting, that can be, I think a lot of people are like, that's kind of weird. Like, what is that? But it's actually really, really convenient. And it's actually what I would use if I were a classroom teacher and having parent teacher conferences. I would say, I'm going to schedule a meeting that is just parent teacher conferences, or like Ms. Oakley's fall parent teacher conferences, and do recurring meeting, no fixed time, because my meetings aren't all at 9 a.m. every day. They're, I've got 2 at 9:20 at this time, and then I've got this one at like 4:15. There's different times to it. So I like that no fixed time one. And once you save it and go to your meetings list in either the browser list of meetings, or even on your app, it shows up as well. Then you just click start that meeting, and you just share that same meeting ID and link with all the parents, and they just go to it when it's their time for the meeting. You don't have to have a different link for every single parent and every single meeting. So anyways, just wanted to plug that a little bit, that I actually find the recurring meeting monthly, daily, whatever is less convenient than it seems. So.
Yeah, the scheduler isn't like super precise, especially if you're going to be doing, a variety of different start and stop times. I would recommend when you do these is like, when it says meeting ID, if you leave it as your personal one, like remember, you only have one personal meeting room. And so it's worthwhile, like, especially for parent-teacher conferences, to like generate a new meeting so that is like a separate compartmentalized room where you have settings that are related to meeting with parents, and is separate than maybe your personal meeting room, which is where you would also be doing, office hours or meeting with your principal or something like that. Yeah, I would think, the recurrence, the no fixed time recurring, I would definitely shuffle those more towards, hey, that's a unique meeting that doesn't go in your personal meeting ID room. And there's those nuance controls here, what happens when people join and whether these things are enforced. Also, if you're going to be like co-teaching with someone, it's worthwhile to make them alternative hosts so they can start the meetings and have controls, and you don't have to escalate them ahead of time. So say you have and you could do a no fixed time for when you get together with the other 4th grade teacher to do your science programming, and just make them the alt host on that one.
Pete, can you show from the screen how you would make a template?
Yeah. The only one I think I had was Schoology 101, but if this was applying a template. So yeah, this is one where I've already saved it off as a template. But if I created this parent teacher conference and recurring, no fixed time, and then so let's just do a couple things. Oh, that one, save. And then if I go to my meetings.
It was in that screen too, Pete.
To make it into one?
Yeah.
Ah.
Like click on upcoming, and it should be down at the bottom because it's no.
I put it in here though.
Parent teacher conference. No, go down, click save again. Okay, now they're at the right, save as.
There it is.
You have to make the meeting first, and then after you've made the meeting, you can save it as a template. And then what would
Thank you.
happen is that one would say, if that's your template and that's what you choose as parent teacher conference, it's going to have the template of no fixed time. It's going to have the template of put in the waiting room. It's going to have all of those things.
Yeah, and especially for those parent teacher ones where it's going to be, you know, yeah, you don't necessarily need as much authentication on it, or you have a particular waiting room that has, you know, a welcome to parent teacher conferences kind of thing. That would be really useful.
It is 3:46. So we do want to say thank you to everyone for coming. I hope you found something valuable out of this course, whether you're brand new to Zoom or you've used it before. I'm happy to stick around I did put in the chat again, the link for the attendance form. If you had any other specific little questions or things that you wanted to know, I'm happy to answer those really quickly, but otherwise have a great rest of your week. And I hope you enjoyed this session. Thanks, Pete. Thanks,
Thank
Jamie.
you. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, good. Love to hear that, Mary.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.